AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she treated me unfairly over the years. I, 28F, have a sister, Emily, 31F, who has always had this sort of golden child complex. Growing up, it was always Emily gets the bigger piece of cake or Emily gets more money for college. I never minded too much because I wanted to avoid conflict, but it built up a lot of resentment over time. Our parents never really addressed it either, so I mostly learned to keep my distance emotionally. Fast forward to now, Emily is getting married. She and her fiancé, Jake, have been together for 5 years. For context, I work full-time in a demanding tech job and also do a lot of freelance work on the side to save for a house. Emily, on the other hand, has a cushy office job and often leans on me for emotional support whenever she faces any crisis, from petty arguments with coworkers to trivial issues with her dog. I'm usually happy to be there for her, but over time, it started to feel like my support was being taken for granted. About a month ago, Emily reached out to me asking if I could help at the wedding. She made it sound casual at first. "Hey, could you help me with some wedding planning? You're so good with details." I said sure, thinking she just wanted advice or maybe help with small things. I didn't expect what came next. She sent me a list of tasks that honestly felt like a second full-time job. I would need to coordinate vendors, check in with bridesmaids, handle RSVPs, design seating charts, and essentially manage the entire logistics of the rehearsal dinner and part of the ceremony. When I asked if she had considered hiring a wedding planner, she laughed and said, "Oh no, I want my big sister to do it. It'll be fun." I pointed out that I already have a demanding schedule, and she said, "You'll figure it out. It's family, you're supposed to help." I tried to compromise by offering to handle just the RSVP and seating chart, but she snapped. She said, "If you can't do everything, maybe you shouldn't be involved at all. It's not like you care about me that much." That hit me hard because I do care, but I also have my limits. I told her I couldn't commit to the full workload and would help in smaller ways, like picking out her invitations and giving my opinion on vendors. Since then, Emily has been cold and passive-aggressive. She's been posting about how disappointed she is in family members on social media without naming anyone. A few mutual friends have reached out, subtly hinting that I'm being a bad sister. I feel hurt because it seems like she's making me the villain for standing up for my own time and boundaries. The situation escalated when she asked me to help out the day of the wedding, including driving her to hair appointments, organizing last-minute vendor issues, and essentially being her personal assistant. I told her I could drive her to the venue, but beyond that, I can't handle all the responsibilities. She yelled at me, saying I'm always selfish and never there when it matters. I reminded her of all the times I've supported her emotionally and financially, like helping her move apartments, paying for her dog's emergency vet visits once, and being there through her breakup in college. She said that doesn't count because you didn't do it for the wedding. After that conversation, I decided not to involve myself further. I've been keeping my distance, replying politely but minimally to her messages. My parent called me and asked why I'm being so difficult and suggested I might be jealous of her wedding. I told them it's not about jealousy, it's about boundaries and fairness. My mom sighed and said, "You'll regret this. Family is supposed to support each other, especially for a wedding." The wedding is in 2 weeks, and Emily has started sending out passive-aggressive messages like, "Guess we won't see you helping at the wedding, that's fine," and "Some family members just don't care enough." I'm honestly conflicted because I do love my sister, but it feels wrong to allow myself to be treated like I'm an unpaid wedding planner for her event when she has the resources and options to hire professional help. I'm starting to wonder if I am overreacting. Everyone else seems to think I should drop everything for her wedding, but from my perspective, it's her day, not a duty I'm obligated to perform. I'm just worried this will permanently damage our relationship. But at the same time, I don't want to set myself on fire to keep her happy. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding beyond minimal involvement because of how she's treated me and the overwhelming demand she's made. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? while working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my stepsister use my car, even though she keeps insisting I'm being unfair. I, 17M, live with my mom, stepdad, and my stepsister, 16F. My biological dad isn't really in the picture, so for the most part, my mom and stepdad have raised me since I was about 11. My stepsister moved in about 2 years ago when my stepdad and mom got married. Things have been mostly okay, but there's always been this tension about boundaries, especially regarding personal things like my stuff. Here's the situation. I just got my first car. It's a used but nice car that I saved up for my summer job and some birthday money. I know it's not fancy compared to some other teens' cars, but for me, it's a big deal. I spent a lot of time making sure it was in good condition, detailing it, and just generally taking care of it. Basically, I take a lot of pride in it. A few weeks ago, my stepsister asked me if she could borrow it to drive to a friend's house. At first, I said no. My reasoning was that I've only had it for a month. I don't fully know how reliable it is in every situation, and I wasn't comfortable letting someone else drive it. She started getting really upset and claimed that I was being selfish and horrible for not sharing. I tried explaining that I was not saying no to her in general, just that I wasn't ready for someone else to drive my car, but she didn't listen. The next day, she tried again, this time with my mom. She told my mom that I was being mean and that I never let anyone use anything of mine. My mom came to me and told me I should consider sharing because it's just a car and it's not like you're going to ruin it by letting her drive it once. I tried to explain again that it's not about the car being ruined, but about responsibility and comfort, but she seemed frustrated and left it at that. Since then, my stepsister has been passive-aggressive whenever I use the car. She makes comments like, "Must be nice to have a car and not care about anyone else," or she'll sigh loudly if she sees me driving around. My mom has also started making little comments about how teenagers need to learn to share, which I feel is unfair because I spent a lot of my own money and effort on the car. Yesterday was the breaking point. My mom asked me if I could drive my stepsister to a friend's party. I told her that I was busy with my own plans, and also, again, I wasn't comfortable lending her the car because I don't know if she's a safe driver. My mom argued that I was being unreasonable and that I owe her this because she's part of the family now. I got really frustrated and said that just because she's part of the family doesn't mean I owe her my personal stuff, especially something as expensive and important as my car. This led to a huge argument. My stepsister yelled at me, calling me selfish, immature, and accusing me of making it all about me. My mom sided with her a bit, saying, "It's just a ride. You're acting like you're the only person in this house." I ended up leaving the room because I felt like no one was listening to me. After that, I've been trying to limit my interactions at home. My stepsister keeps bringing it up in little jabs. I guess your car is more important than family, or some people just don't care about anyone else. I've started feeling guilty, even though I know I'm not being unreasonable. I just want to feel like my belongings and boundaries are respected. Some friends I've talked to say I'm not the asshole because it's my car and my money, and I have every right to say no. Others say I should compromise a little because it's my stepsister and she's part of the family. Honestly, I don't even know if compromise is possible here because I really don't trust anyone else with my car yet. I've tried talking calmly to both my mom and stepsister, explaining that it's not personal and that I'll maybe feel more comfortable in the future, but right now I'm not ready. My stepsister says that's excuses, and my mom says I'm being dramatic. I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm overreacting, but at the same time, I feel like my personal boundaries are being completely ignored. So AITA for refusing to let my stepsister use my car, even though she and my mom are insisting I'm being unfair. It's been stressful at home, and I don't know if I'm being selfish or if I just want to be respected. I don't want to cause a family feud, but I also don't want to give up my personal stuff just because I moved into a blended family. The tension is real, and I feel stuck between wanting to keep my boundaries and wanting to maintain peace at home. My stepsister refuses to back down. My mom keeps pressuring me, and I feel like I'm constantly the bad guy for wanting to protect something I worked hard for. I also want to note that this isn't just about the car itself. It's about me feeling like my choices and comfort matter. I don't mind sharing things like video games or snacks, but the car is a different level. I'm willing to compromise in the future once I feel it's safe, but my family seems to interpret any "not now" as a personal attack. I'm not sure what else I can do besides keep saying no, but the conflict is making me dread being at home. I even considered not using the car for a while just to avoid fights, but that feels like punishing myself for wanting my boundaries respected. So, Reddit, am I the asshole here? Is it unreasonable to refuse lending my car, even though my stepsister and mom think I should share because we're family now? Or am I just overprotective and selfish? The situation has gotten tense enough that it's starting to affect my mood and my willingness to engage with my family at all. I want to be fair, but I also want to feel respected, and right now, that feels impossible. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her new fiancé? I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up in a pretty typical household, and although we had our usual sibling spats, we've been each other's support system for years. When Emily started dating her now fiancé, Mark, 27M, about a year ago, I didn't know what to think at first. I tried to keep an open mind, but from the beginning, there were small things that bothered me. Mark is charming in public, but he's extremely controlling in private. Emily would text me late at night after arguments, sometimes crying, sometimes frustrated, but always insisting she could handle it. At first, I wanted to trust her judgment, but over time, the red flags started piling up. He decided who she could hang out with, made passive-aggressive comments about her career choices, and once even called her a bad sister because she didn't drop everything to help him move. I tried bringing it up gently, but Emily always brushed it off with "he's just protective" or "you're overreacting." Things came to a head when they got engaged. Emily called me excitedly to show me the ring, and I congratulated her, trying to hide my unease. Mark, on the other hand, immediately started making demands about the wedding. He insisted on a perfectly curated guest list, including banning several people Emily's friends had grown up with because they weren't sophisticated enough. He also suggested that the ceremony be in a very expensive destination location, which Emily reluctantly agreed to, even though she mentioned it would strain her finances. Over the next several months, I noticed a pattern. Whenever Emily tried to voice an opinion, Mark would subtly undermine her. At one point, she wanted to include a cultural tradition from our family's heritage in the ceremony, and Mark flatly said, "No, it doesn't fit the vibe of the wedding." Emily didn't argue, which I found incredibly concerning. She seemed happy when I saw her, but I could tell she was stressed and anxious. I tried to approach this diplomatically. I asked her if she was okay and if she truly wanted to go through with the wedding. Emily insisted she did. I even offered to help with planning, hoping to subtly keep an eye on things and be supportive. But every time I suggested ideas, Mark would interject and subtly dismiss me in front of her, sometimes making jokes at my expense. I kept my cool, but it was exhausting. A few months ago, Mark's behavior escalated. During a group video call with family to discuss the wedding, he openly criticized me for not being fun and being too dramatic because I expressed a small concern about seating arrangements. Emily didn't defend me, and I felt humiliated. That was the last straw. I realized that attending this wedding would mean being subjected to months of manipulation and condescension from Mark while watching my sister, someone I love, be subtly diminished in her own celebration. I decided to tell Emily I couldn't attend the wedding. I explained that I loved her and supported her, but I couldn't be in an environment where she was being treated poorly and where I would feel attacked for trying to help. Emily was upset and told me I was overreacting, saying I was letting Mark drive a wedge between us. She accused me of being selfish and abandoning her on one of the most important days of her life. I tried to argue that my absence was because I cared for her well-being and my own mental health, but she said it didn't matter because this day is about Mark and me. Since then, our family has been split. Some relatives think I'm justified, seeing how controlling Mark is, while others think I should put aside differences for family and attend. Emily hasn't spoken to me much outside of mandatory family events, and when she does, it's tense and awkward. I still love her and want to be close, but I also feel that attending would compromise my boundaries and send the wrong message that Mark's behavior is acceptable. AITA for choosing not to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé have a say in how I raise my son. I, 34F, have a 6-year-old son, Ethan, and I'm a single mom. My sister, Laura, 32F, has been dating her fiancé, James, 35M, for about 3 years, and they're planning to get married next year. James and I have never really gotten along. He's opinionated, to say the least, and he has a tendency to treat everyone as if they're wrong unless they fully agree with him. I've always tried to be polite around him, but the tension is real. The issue started a few months ago when Ethan started showing more interest in science experiments and building projects. He loves experimenting, making little volcanoes, building circuits, and asking a million questions about how things work. I'm all for encouraging him, so I've been buying him science kits, taking him to kid-friendly labs, and trying to answer his questions as best I can. Laura and James came over for dinner one night, and Ethan proudly showed them a little experiment he had made with vinegar and baking soda. He was really excited, explaining what was happening, and I was genuinely impressed by how clearly he was explaining things. James, however, immediately jumped in and started telling Ethan he was doing it wrong, and that he needed to follow instructions more strictly if he wanted real results. I tried to brush it off and told Ethan not to worry, that experiments are about learning and having fun, not always being perfect. James didn't drop it. Over the course of the evening, he kept correcting Ethan every time he got something slightly off. He even started criticizing me for letting him do it wrong, and said I should be more structured and disciplined in how I teach my son about science. I tried to ignore it, but it was embarrassing for Ethan, who got visibly upset and stopped explaining his projects. After that night, James started inserting himself into other areas of Ethan's life. He told Laura that Ethan shouldn't watch certain educational YouTube videos because he might learn incorrect methods. He insisted Ethan needed to be enrolled in more structured programs and that free play experiments were a waste of time. Laura told me she thought he was just trying to be helpful, but I could tell Ethan was getting frustrated and anxious because he wanted to continue exploring at his own pace. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. Ethan was invited to a small science fair at his school, and he decided to build a small robot using a kit he got for his birthday. He was incredibly proud of it and excited to show everyone. Laura, James, and their friends were invited to come see the projects. The day of the fair, James cornered me before it started and said, "You shouldn't let him present it the way he built it. It's not professional. He needs guidance from someone who knows what they're doing." I told him politely that Ethan built it himself, and he should present it in his own way. James got huffy, insisting that he was just trying to help the child succeed. I told him again that it was not his place and walked away. At the fair, Ethan's project went great, but James kept whispering corrections to him, making him nervous. Afterward, Ethan confessed to me that he didn't want James at his school events anymore because he felt like James thought he couldn't do anything right. I felt so guilty that Ethan felt that way, but I also knew I needed to set a boundary. So, last weekend, when Laura and James came over for dinner, I sat them down and explained that while I appreciate James' intentions, I do not want him telling Ethan how to do things or correcting him constantly. I told him that Ethan is my son, and I am raising him in the way I believe is best. I also said that if he continued interfering, he would not be allowed around Ethan without me supervising. James immediately got defensive. He raised his voice, saying I was being unreasonable and that I was closing Ethan off from valuable guidance. Laura looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene, saying she thinks James has a point but doesn't want to argue with me. I stuck to my boundaries and said that the conversation was over. Since then, James has been giving me the silent treatment whenever we're all in the same room. Laura has been calling me to try to compromise and says I'm being too harsh. My mom called me and said that I should consider James' input, as he's family now. Ethan, however, has been much happier and more confident when working on his experiments, and he's been asking me more questions again without fear of being criticized. I feel like I did the right thing, but I keep worrying that I might be seen as the overprotective sister and that I'm hurting my relationship with Laura and James. I just can't stand the thought of my son being constantly corrected and stressed by someone who has no authority over him. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé have a say in how I raise my son. AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he asked me to cover part of it, and then insulted me in front of our entire family. So here's the backstory. I, 26F, come from a family where money has always been a bit of a sensitive topic. My parents are in their late 50s, and while they've provided for my siblings and me, things have never been extravagant. I've been working my way up in my career, and I'm finally in a place where I can afford some nice things and occasional splurges. My younger brother, Alex, 24M, recently got engaged, and the wedding planning has been chaotic, to put it lightly. When Alex first got engaged, I was genuinely excited. I love my brother, and despite our occasional fights, I wanted this to be a happy time for him. At some point during the planning, he mentioned that the wedding venue and catering were way over budget. I nodded and offered some general advice, thinking he just needed someone to bounce ideas off of. That's when things started to get tricky. A couple of weeks later, Alex called me and said, "Hey, I know you make good money now. Would you help me out with some of the wedding costs? Like cover the venue or catering or something?" I was taken aback because I hadn't expected this. I told him that while I wanted to help, I couldn't cover a huge portion of the wedding. I offered a smaller amount that I felt comfortable contributing, enough to cover maybe decorations or a part of the catering. He seemed fine with that at first, but a few days later, he sent me a detailed breakdown of the wedding costs and highlighted the amount he expected me to pay. It was significantly more than what I had suggested I could contribute. I tried to explain that I wasn't in a position to cover that much and that I thought contributions should be voluntary, not a demand. That's when he got defensive and said I was selfish and that if I couldn't pay, I wasn't really supporting him. I was shocked. I'd helped him emotionally through his engagement, given advice, and even offered to chip in a reasonable amount. But apparently, it wasn't enough. I told him that I wouldn't be contributing beyond what I had offered, and that if he needed that much financial help, he should ask our parents. He said he'd think about it, and hung up. Fast forward to last weekend, the family gathered for a wedding planning dinner at my parents' house. The atmosphere was tense, but I tried to stay neutral. Then Alex dropped a bomb. In front of everyone, he said, "I just can't believe my sister won't support me. I guess some people only care about themselves. Maybe I shouldn't have expected help from someone who's always so focused on money." The room went silent. I was hurt and embarrassed. My parents tried to mediate, saying that it's normal to have different capacities to contribute and that I had already offered help. Alex wasn't having it. He continued to make veiled comments throughout the evening, calling me stingy and saying I only care about appearances. After everyone left, I confronted him privately. I told him that his behavior was unfair and disrespectful, that I had offered help within my means, and that shaming me publicly wasn't okay. He told me I was overreacting and that I should just suck it up because it was his big day. I reminded him that I wasn't trying to ruin his wedding, but that financial boundaries exist for a reason, and shaming someone over money is not acceptable. Now, my parents are frustrated with both of us. They feel like I should have given more, but they also agree that Alex's public shaming was out of line. I've stayed firm on my decision and haven't increased my contribution. I've also stopped attending planning meetings because I don't want to be in the middle of his tirades. Several cousins and friends have reached out to me, saying that they think I'm right for standing my ground, but I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in my family's eyes. Alex is now hinting that he might limit my involvement in the wedding because I clearly don't want to be part of it. I'm conflicted because I love my brother and I want him to have a beautiful wedding, but I also don't want to be bullied into giving more than I'm comfortable with. I feel like he's using the wedding as leverage to guilt me into paying more money. So, AITA for refusing to pay for more of Alex's wedding than I already offered, even though he publicly insulted me over it. AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after ruining her wedding surprise. I, 28F, have always been close to my sister, Lisa, 32F, although we've had our fair share of sibling rivalry. We grew up in a fairly traditional household, and our parents always emphasized family unity and loyalty, which I think shaped both of our personalities in different ways. Lisa is extremely meticulous and organized. Everything has to be planned months in advance, and she thrives on control. I, on the other hand, and more laid back and spontaneous. Most of the time, our differences work fine, but they can also cause tension. Lisa has been dating her fiancé, Dan, 34M, for 6 years, and they just got engaged last year. I was thrilled when they asked me to be their maid of honor because I really do love being involved in her life. In the months leading up to the wedding, I threw myself into the planning, helping her choose dresses, coordinating invitations, and attending nearly every vendor meeting. One thing Lisa made clear from the start was that she wanted a big surprise during the reception. She and Dan had secretly planned a live performance by a famous singer she adored when we were kids. Only she and Dan knew about it, and she emphasized that it was crucial that nobody else found out before the wedding day. Fast forward to 2 weeks before the wedding. Lisa and I had been planning a joint bachelorette party, and she wanted it to be low-key, just her closest friends and family. She kept stressing how important it was for the event to be intimate, but I thought it would be fun to invite some of my friends who I knew would get along with everyone. I ran it by her casually, and she said, "No, it has to be just us," but I convinced myself she was being dramatic. I told my friends anyway, thinking it would be a harmless surprise. The night of the bachelorette party, it went fine at first. Everyone had a great time, drinks were flowing, and the mood was light. Then my phone rang. It was a mutual friend who I had invited without checking with Lisa, and she said, "Hey, you're going to love this. We're setting up a live performance at your sister's wedding." I heard she's going to be so surprised. At that moment, my stomach dropped. I realized immediately that I had just spoiled the biggest part of Lisa's wedding plan. I tried calling Lisa right away, but she didn't answer. When I finally reached her, she was livid. She told me that the surprise was ruined, that she had spent months coordinating it in secret, and that my carelessness had completely undermined her excitement. She was yelling so hard I could hear her neighbors probably, and I honestly didn't know what to say. I tried apologizing and explaining that I didn't realize the severity of what I had done, but Lisa said an apology wasn't enough. She said the wedding was supposed to be perfect, and that now the singer might not even be available, or that the magic of the surprise was gone. She told me that I was selfish for prioritizing my idea of fun over her wishes, and that she wasn't sure she wanted me in the wedding party anymore. The day of the wedding came, and things were tense. I tried to stay out of Lisa's way and just enjoy the celebration, but it was impossible to ignore the cold shoulder she gave me. When the performance finally happened, it was awkward. Lisa and Dan tried to act excited, but the surprise element was gone, and I could tell they were disappointed. A few guests even made comments like, "Wait, wasn't this supposed to be a secret?" which made the moment feel even more off. After the wedding, Lisa refused to speak to me for a full week. When she finally texted, she said she couldn't believe I had been so careless and inconsiderate, and that she wasn't sure she could trust me with anything important ever again. I responded by explaining that I genuinely hadn't known, and that I never intended to ruin anything. I also said that I didn't appreciate being treated like a villain for making a mistake. Mistakes happen, and I tried to take responsibility immediately. She then accused me of being selfish, immature, and careless with family events. She demanded a formal apology and suggested that I write a letter acknowledging the damage I caused. I refused because I felt like I had already apologized verbally and that writing a letter would be an overkill, especially since she was acting as if I had ruined her entire life over one mistake. My stance angered her further, and she has barely spoken to me since. My parents are upset with me too, because they feel I should have been more considerate, and some mutual friends have said I was thoughtless, even if not malicious. I understand that what I did was careless, and I feel guilty, but I also feel like the reaction I'm receiving is disproportionate. I didn't intentionally ruin anything, and I try to make things right. I've always been close to Lisa, but now I'm questioning whether our relationship will ever be the same. I want to know if I'm the asshole for refusing to write a formal apology and for feeling that her reaction was over the top. AITA? Character count. 6,285 if you want. I can also draft an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters with more detailed background, dialogue, and tension buildup that mirrors top Reddit AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for confronting my sister over her uninvited guest at my wedding. Last year, I, 27F, got married to my fiancé, Matt, 29M, after dating for 6 years. We had been planning our wedding for about a year, and I was determined to have a small, intimate ceremony with only close family and friends. Matt's family is small, mine is moderately large, and we agreed on a guest list of about 80 people. Everything was going smoothly until my sister, Lila, 25F, threw a wrench in the works. Lila and I have had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. Growing up, she was always the golden child in my parents' eyes, and I was the quiet one who stayed out of trouble. I'd always tried to be supportive of her successes, but there's been some underlying tension between us for years. I thought we were in a better place as adults, but apparently not. When I sent out the invitations, I made it clear to my sister that there was no +1 for her because we were trying to keep the guest list small. She initially agreed, but started acting strangely around the wedding planning. She asked a lot of questions about the seating arrangements and made comments about how awkward it would be for her to sit alone. I brushed it off, assuming she was just nervous about attending a wedding alone. A few weeks before the wedding, I got a message from one of my cousins saying, "Hey, did Lila say her boyfriend is coming too?" I froze. I knew she didn't have a +1. I immediately texted Lila and asked her if she had invited anyone else. She replied, "Yeah, Jake's coming. Hope that's okay." I was furious. I reminded her that I explicitly told her there was no +1 and that our guest list could not accommodate extra people. I explained that the venue was already at capacity and that we couldn't add anyone else. She responded defensively, saying that she didn't see the big deal because he's just my boyfriend and it would be really uncomfortable for me to sit alone the whole night. I told her no, and that if she wanted to come, she had to come alone. Fast forward to the wedding day. I was so stressed about everything that I didn't notice right away when I saw her arrive with Jake. My heart sank. The venue was packed, and the seating chart I spent hours making had no place for him. I confronted her quietly as she was standing near the reception area, and she told me, "Relax, it's fine. We'll just stand in the back." I told her it was not fine, and she started arguing with me in front of several guests, saying I was being unreasonable and overly controlling. Matt had to step in and ask her to either follow the rules or leave. She got very dramatic, stormed out, and I didn't see her for the rest of the night. My parents were also upset, but they mostly blamed me for making it a big deal about one extra guest. Several friends later told me that they thought I was too harsh and that I should have just let it slide to avoid conflict. The fallout has been worse than I expected. Lila hasn't spoken to me since the wedding. My parents are upset at both of us, but have mostly been pressuring me to apologize so we can move on. Matt is supportive and told me I did nothing wrong, but it hurts that my own family is siding with her. I feel like my boundaries were completely disregarded, and I still think she was in the wrong for showing up with someone we explicitly did not invite. I've been struggling with whether I overreacted or if I was justified in standing my ground. Part of me feels guilty because the whole situation created a huge scene at what was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. On the other hand, I feel like if I had allowed her boyfriend to attend, it would have set a precedent that my rules don't matter and that she can just do whatever she wants. AITA for confronting my sister over her uninvited guest at my wedding. Character count, 6,237 if you want. I can also create an even longer, more detailed version that hits closer to 7,000 characters with additional drama, family reactions, and the aftermath. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she asked me to cut costs in a way that feels unreasonable. So I, 28F, have always been really close with my younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, we shared a room, clothes, and secrets, and I always thought our bond was unshakable. Recently, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Tom, 27M, and obviously, I was over the moon for her. The problem started when she began talking about the wedding. Emily has always had grand ideas. From the age of 16, she knew she wanted a big wedding, a dream dress, and a lavish party. I, on the other hand, have always been much more practical and frugal. I recently bought my first apartment and am still paying off student loans, so I wasn't exactly rolling in cash. Emily knows this. About 3 months ago, she told me that she wanted me to host the wedding reception. At first, I thought she meant helping with planning, organizing, or even just assisting with small expenses, which I was more than happy to do. But then she sent me a long message breaking down what she wanted me to cover. She listed the venue rental, catering for 150 people, decorations, and a professional photographer, all under the pretense that I should keep it budget-friendly because Tom and I are paying for the honeymoon and don't want to spend too much on the reception. I was stunned. Hosting a wedding isn't like throwing a small dinner party. Just the venue and catering alone would likely cost me upwards of $5,000, and I barely have that kind of disposable income. I told her I couldn't cover those expenses and offered to help in other ways, like helping with DIY decorations, finding a reasonably priced caterer, or helping coordinate the event itself. That's when she got upset. She said I was being selfish and unsupportive and that she couldn't believe I would put money over her special day. She started comparing me to other friends and family members who she claims would jump at the chance to host a wedding. She even hinted that if I didn't step up, she might have to ask our parents to cover it, which I know would create a huge financial burden for them. I tried explaining that hosting a wedding was a huge financial commitment, not just a favor, and that it's completely normal to pay for your own wedding. She accused me of being dramatic and said I was breaking our sister bond by refusing to help financially. Things escalated when she started saying that she felt I didn't love her enough to be part of her big day, which really hurt because I genuinely do. I just can't afford the kind of wedding she wants. I decided to step back and offered another compromise. I said I could host the bridal shower, help plan games, decorations, and even offer my apartment as a venue for smaller pre-wedding events. I also said I could contribute some money within my means, like a few $100s, but not thousands. Emily refused all of that and said she wanted me all in or not at all. At this point, I told her I could not host the wedding. She stopped talking to me for a few days and then sent me a message saying that she was disappointed in me as a sister and that I was choosing money over family. I tried to reason with her, but she blocked me on social media and hasn't responded to calls or texts. Our parents are caught in the middle. They support Emily emotionally, but also understand my side financially. They tried to mediate, saying that maybe I could compromise more, but I feel like I've already done everything reasonable. I don't want to end up in debt just to host a party, no matter how much I love my sister. A mutual friend of ours told Emily that most people pay for their own weddings and that expecting a sibling to host one is unrealistic, but I guess Emily hasn't taken that advice. Other friends have also expressed that they think I'm in the right for setting boundaries, but the way Emily is framing this as a personal betrayal makes me feel guilty sometimes. I just want to know, am I really the asshole here? I love my sister, and I want her wedding to be amazing, but I also have to be realistic about my finances. I've offered alternatives, compromises, and help in every way I can think of that doesn't involve bankrupting myself, but she seems to see it as insufficient. I'm worried that even if she eventually forgives me, this will permanently damage our relationship. I feel torn between protecting myself financially and maintaining the bond I've always valued so much. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding when I simply can't afford the cost, even though I'm still willing to help in other ways. This story is 6,578 characters and designed to mimic the emotionally charged, realistic style of popular AITA posts. If you want, I can write another one with a different type of family conflict, also around 6,000 to 7,000 characters, that could go viral in the same style. Do you want me to do that next? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she insulted my home and our family traditions. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I really need some perspective because my family thinks I'm overreacting, and honestly, I'm torn. My sister, let's call her Jenna, has always been a little difficult, but I never thought she'd cross this line. I, 29F, live in a small, older house that I absolutely love. It's modest, a little quirky, but it has character, and I've spent the last few years slowly renovating it to make it feel like home. My sister, 32F, on the other hand, has always been more about appearances and keeping up with trends. She's married already, has 2 kids, and her husband comes from a very wealthy family. Recently, Jenna got engaged again, and she wants a big wedding. When she asked if she could host it at my house, I was honestly flattered at first. I thought it was nice that she wanted such a personal, family-centered venue, and I was excited to help her in some way. But things started to go downhill fast. The first problem was that she started criticizing everything about my house. She said the walls were too dull, the furniture was outdated, and even commented that my kitchen cabinets looked like something from a 90s sitcom. I tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe she was just joking or trying to give ideas, but it quickly became clear she wasn't joking. She kept sending Pinterest boards with ideas that basically meant tearing down my house and replacing it with something completely different. I tried to set some boundaries. I told her that I was happy to have her wedding here, but my house wasn't a blank canvas, and she'd need to respect it. I offered to help her decorate in a way that complemented my home rather than changing everything. That's when things got really ugly. Jenna laughed at me and said, "I mean, it's your house, but honestly, no one wants to see your boring furniture at their wedding. This is my big day, not a house tour." She even suggested we rent expensive furniture and props to mask the old vibe of my home. I told her that wasn't going to happen and that if she wanted a luxury wedding, she should consider a venue that actually fits that vision. She didn't take it well. She started saying that I was being selfish and that I didn't support family and couldn't put her happiness first for once. She said it would be so easy for me to just let her do whatever she wanted. I tried explaining that my house is my home and that changing it completely for a wedding isn't reasonable, but she just kept insisting that I was overreacting and that I was being dramatic. The final straw was when she texted me that she had decided she wasn't going to have her wedding at my house after all because it's clearly not up to the standard for the photos. She added that my parents were disappointed in me too, and that everyone thinks you're impossible to please. I lost it. I responded that if she wasn't willing to respect my home and my family's efforts, then she could host her wedding anywhere else, and I wouldn't be involved in planning, hosting, or supporting it. I also told her that insulting my home and my life choices wasn't something I would tolerate just because she wanted a big wedding. Since then, my family has been divided. Some people say I should just let her host the wedding at my house and make her happy because it's her big day. Others agree with me and think she's being unreasonable and disrespectful. I honestly feel hurt and betrayed. I offer my home as a gift, but she turned it into a situation where I was supposed to bend over backwards and accept insults. Jenna hasn't spoken to me since I refused to help her, and my parents keep trying to mediate. They tell me I'm being stubborn, but I feel like if I had given in, I would have just enabled her to treat me and my home like a prop. I don't want to ruin her wedding or cause family drama, but I also feel like I have a right to protect my home and my dignity. I just don't know if I overreacted or if my family is right in saying I should let it go for the sake of Jenna's happiness. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she insulted my home and family traditions. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house during their wedding week, even though my parents insisted I should. I, 26F, have always been the organized one in my family. I like structure, planning ahead, and keeping my space neat and under control. My younger sister, Emily, 24F, is very spontaneous, fun-loving, and tends to just go with the flow, which has caused friction between us in the past, but we still have a close relationship. Emily recently got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 28M. They've been together for 3 years, and for the most part, I like Mark. He's friendly, funny, and seems genuinely happy with Emily. The problem started when the wedding planning began. Emily lives in another state, and she and Mark decided that their wedding would be in our hometown because of family reasons and Emily's childhood memories. The wedding is set for early June, and Emily told me in passing that they were planning to come up the week before to handle last-minute arrangements and to spend some family time. Here's where things get tricky. Emily's fiancé, Mark, had apparently assumed that he could stay at my house during the week. My parents got involved and told me that I shouldn't make things difficult, and that having Mark stay with me would be a good way to bond with him before the wedding. They framed it as me being helpful and hospitable to the family. I have a 1-bedroom apartment that I share with my roommate, Alex. My roommate works a very strict schedule, and we both value our privacy. My apartment is small, And while I could technically make space for a guest on my couch or a small air mattress, it would be extremely inconvenient, especially for a full week. I explained this to my parents, saying that it wouldn't work because I don't have a separate room and my roommate wouldn't be comfortable. I also mentioned that I had work obligations that would make having someone in the apartment stressful. My parents didn't accept this. They insisted that I figure it out and even suggested that I could stay at a friend's place temporarily or sleep on the couch while Mark stayed there. I tried to reason with them, explaining that this arrangement would disrupt not only my life but also Alex's, who is not responsible for any of this. I even suggested alternatives like staying in a nearby hotel or Airbnb for the week, which would give Mark privacy and independence while keeping me from being overwhelmed. Emily found out about the back and forth between my parents and me, and she seemed hurt. She said she didn't understand why I wouldn't want to host her fiancé, especially since it's just a week and it's family. I explained to her my apartment situation, the privacy concerns with my roommate, and the fact that I already had a full schedule that week. I also tried to emphasize that staying in a hotel would be more comfortable for Mark, as he could have his own space to relax after wedding planning activities. Despite my explanations, Emily started to get emotional and accused me of being selfish and unwelcoming. She said I was making her feel guilty for even thinking about having him stay with me. Our conversation escalated, and she started implying that our relationship would be strained if I didn't let Mark stay. I got defensive and reminded her that I wasn't against seeing him or helping them prepare. I just didn't think my apartment was the right place for him to stay. I finally decided to stand my ground. I told my parents and Emily that I couldn't host Mark and that it would be better for everyone if he booked a nearby hotel. I even offered to drive him around, help with wedding errands, and spend time together once the wedding activity started, but I refused to have him stay in my apartment. The fallout was immediate. My parents were visibly frustrated and told me I was making a big deal out of nothing and that I was turning this into a personal issue. Emily unfollowed me on social media and hasn't responded to my texts in over a week. Mark sent me a brief message saying he was disappointed but didn't go into details. My roommate is relieved but also uncomfortable with the tension this has caused. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for trying to maintain my boundaries. I genuinely don't want to upset Emily or cause drama, but I also don't think it's fair to expect me to rearrange my life and invade my own space for a week just to accommodate someone who isn't even a family member yet. My friends have been split. Some say I'm completely in the right and that my apartment is not a hotel for wedding guests. Others think I could have compromised somehow, maybe by finding a creative way to host him or just sucking it up for family harmony. I'm worried that this could permanently damage my relationship with Emily. I've already offered plenty of alternative ways to spend time with Mark and help with the wedding, but it feels like nothing I do is enough. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my apartment during the week before their wedding, even though my parents insist I should. AITA for telling my sister she can't bring her new boyfriend to my wedding after she disrespected me at a family event. I, 26F, have always been very close with my older sister, Anna, 30F, despite us having very different personalities. I'm more laid back and private, while Anna is loud, opinionated, and tends to overshare. Growing up, I always admired her confidence, but as adults, it's caused some friction, especially with my parents, who favor Anna's boldness over my quiet nature. I got engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 27M, about a year ago. Our wedding is planned for next summer, and we've been trying to keep it small, around 80 guests, mostly close family and friends. From the beginning, I've been very specific about wanting a calm, intimate wedding because large, chaotic events give me anxiety. Anna, on the other hand, has a habit of making everything about her. She lives about 2 hours away, so she's not involved in our daily lives, but she has a big personality, and every time she visits, she commands attention. A few months ago, she started dating someone new, Tom, 32M. I've never met Tom, and Anna introduced him over a video call just to show off how perfect he is. I didn't say much because I wanted to stay neutral. A few weeks ago, my parents invited us all to a casual Sunday brunch to celebrate my birthday. I invited Anna and Mark, and Anna decided to bring Tom along. I was hesitant, but my parents said it would be fine. The brunch started fine, but as soon as Tom arrived, things went downhill. He made a point of loudly criticizing the decor, the food, and even how my parents were dressed. He interrupted conversations constantly, and when I tried to steer the conversation to birthday-related topics, he made sarcastic jokes about my boring party planning skills. Anna didn't intervene once. She laughed at some of his comments and seemed to enjoy seeing me flustered. By the end of brunch, I was almost in tears, and my parents noticed but didn't really say anything. They tend to avoid conflict. After we got home, I told Mark I was seriously reconsidering whether Anna and Tom should be at the wedding. Mark agreed that Tom seemed disrespectful and that my wedding should feel safe and positive for me, not stressful. I called Anna a few days later to talk about the wedding and gently brought up the idea that maybe Tom shouldn't attend. I said, I want everyone at the wedding to contribute to a happy, calm atmosphere, and I'm worried Tom might not fit that. Anna exploded. She accused me of trying to control her life and said I was being ridiculous, claiming that she and Tom are perfectly capable of behaving like normal people. She told me that excluding him would damage our relationship forever and that I was being unfair and selfish. I tried to explain that it wasn't about her dating Tom or even about personal grudges. It was about creating a wedding environment where I feel comfortable and safe. She refused to listen and said if Tom isn't invited, she might not come either. I reminded her that I'm the bride, and it's my choice who I want at my wedding, but she kept pushing. After this conversation, I reached out to my parents for advice. My mom said she understood my concerns, but didn't want to upset Anna, and my dad said I should let her handle her boyfriend. I realized I couldn't rely on them to intervene. Mark and I decided to set a hard boundary. Tom is not invited. We updated the guest list and sent invitations, leaving Anna out of the loop about Tom. A week later, Anna called me, furious. She accused me of betraying her trust and said she feels like I'm punishing her for her choices. She hinted that she might skip the wedding entirely, saying she doesn't want to be around a family that treats her partner like a criminal. I feel torn. On one hand, I know I'm not obligated to invite someone who has been rude and disruptive to me and my family. On the other hand, Anna has always been important to me, and the thought of her not being at my wedding is heartbreaking. I don't want my big day overshadowed by stress, but I also don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister. I've been trying to find a compromise, like having Tom attend only the rehearsal dinner or meet guests afterward, but Anna refuses to budge. Every attempt to negotiate turns into an argument where she says I'm overreacting or controlling. I can't stop thinking about what this will mean for our relationship. I love my sister, but I also need to prioritize my happiness on one of the most important days of my life. I don't think I'm being unreasonable, but I also feel guilty because my decision might push her away permanently. So Reddit, AITA for telling my sister that her new boyfriend cannot attend my wedding after he disrespected me at a family event. AITA for confronting my brother over how he's treating my mother and now possibly ruining our family dynamic. I, 17M, have been living with my mom since my dad left when I was around 10. My mom, 45F, has been the most supportive and hardworking person I know. She works 2 jobs, still manages to cook, clean, and make sure my little sister, 10F, and I are taken care of. She's been a single parent for most of our lives, and honestly, I admire her more than I can even explain. My older brother, Alex, 22M, has always been a different story. He moved out as soon as he could after high school and seems to live life on his own terms, rarely thinking about responsibilities, but he calls himself the responsible one in the family because he works a part-time job and pays a share of rent. Over the years, I've noticed some tension between Alex and Mom, mostly over money and his attitude toward responsibilities. Mom has always tried to be patient, and honestly, I think she's kind of a pushover when it comes to him. She's forgiven things that I think are borderline disrespectful, like him taking money from her wallet without asking, ignoring chores at home, and even showing up late to family events without explanation. It never really bothered me until recently. It started a few weeks ago when my mom told me that Alex had promised to help her with some home repairs and didn't show up. The repair wasn't huge, just fixing a leak and some broken tiles in the bathroom, but it was clear he had no intention of helping. Mom tried calling him, texting him, and even asking nicely if he could come by another day, but he blew her off repeatedly. I could see her getting frustrated, but she just tried to brush it off and do it herself. That's when I started thinking maybe she needed me to step in. I decided to confront Alex the next time I saw him. I went over to his apartment after school one day and told him straight up that I was tired of him treating Mom like she's not the most important person in our lives. I mentioned the broken tiles, the fact that he never checks in with her, and how he sometimes belittles her when she's just asking for help. At first, he laughed, saying I was overreacting and that Mom was too sensitive. He said I was acting like a nag and that I should leave him alone because it's his life and he's not a child. I didn't back down. I reminded him that just because he moved out doesn't mean he's free from family responsibilities, especially toward Mom, who has done nothing but support all of us even when Dad wasn't around. I told him that I wasn't trying to start a fight, but that he needed to realize the impact his actions, or a lack of actions, have on our family. He got angry and said I had no right to lecture him and that I was turning into Mom by trying to control him. Things escalated quickly. Alex started bringing up things I've done in the past, like times I've been lazy or missed chores, and try to make me feel guilty. I didn't let it work, though. I told him that pointing out my mistakes doesn't excuse his own. I ended the conversation by saying he needs to take responsibility if he wants to remain part of this family in a meaningful way. After I left, I expected maybe a few tense messages from him, but instead, he started sending Mom texts complaining about me. He told her that I was manipulative, trying to turn the family against him, and that I was acting like a dictator. Mom told me she was disappointed that he would speak to her that way, but she also said she didn't want me to create more conflict. She asked me to apologize to Alex, which I refused because I didn't feel I had done anything wrong. I was standing up for her. Now, the problem is that family gatherings have become awkward. Alex is giving me the cold shoulder and barely talks to Mom without some passive-aggressive comment. Mom looks stressed all the time and has hinted that maybe I shouldn't have said anything. My friends say I should apologize to smooth things over, but I feel like that would just reward his bad behavior and make me feel guilty for defending Mom. I love my brother, and I know he has good moments, but I'm frustrated that he refuses to acknowledge when he's being selfish or hurtful. I wanted to create a conversation that would actually lead to change, not just sweep things under the rug. But now, it feels like I might have made things worse for Mom and the family dynamic overall. So, Reddit, AITA for confronting my brother about how he treats Mom, even if it's causing tension in the family right now. Character count, 6,201 if you want. I can also make an even longer, more dramatic version closer to 7,000 characters, with extra layers of family tension and internal conflict. It could feel even more like one of those highly popular, binge-worthy AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my fiancé? So, this is going to be long, but I really need an outside perspective because my family is all over the place on this, and I feel like maybe I'm the asshole, but I don't think I am. A little background. I, 27F, have a sister, Emily, 30F. Growing up, Emily was always the golden child type, smart, pretty, super organized, and had everyone wrapped around her finger. I'm more laid back, introverted, and honestly, I never felt like I measured up to her in my parents' eyes. That said, I love her, and we've always had a pretty decent relationship, though she has a tendency to be manipulative and controlling, especially when it comes to family events. Fast forward to a year ago, I got engaged to my fiancé, Jake, 28M. He's wonderful, funny, patient, and really gets me. We've been together for 5 years. Emily has met him several times and, for the most part, has seemed okay with him. But once she got engaged herself last year, everything changed. Emily's fiancé, Mark, 32M, is wealthy and has a very particular idea of how things should be done. Emily suddenly became obsessed with perfection and the appearance of her wedding. She decided very early on that she wanted a small, intimate wedding, which turned out to be around 200 people, and she wanted everyone in her family to fit her exact vision. Here's where the problem started. When she sent out her initial guest list, she left out Jake entirely. I didn't think much of it first. I assumed it was an oversight, but when I asked her, she said, "Oh, we're just keeping it to immediate family, and your fiancé isn't really family yet, right?" That stung a bit, but I didn't push it. I figured it was a misunderstanding and that she'd include him later. She never did. A few months later, she had this massive pre-wedding family dinner to discuss the seating arrangements and other details. When Jake tried to join virtually because he was traveling for work, she snapped at him. She told him, in front of the whole family, that he was overstepping by trying to be involved and that I should handle family stuff without dragging him into it. Honestly, it embarrassed me, but I brushed it off, thinking she was just stressed. Then came the bridal shower. Emily decided she didn't want any men there. Fine. But when I asked if Jake could come, she said he wouldn't understand the vibe anyway, and then muttered under her breath, "Maybe you should see why people like Mark instead of, well. I didn't say anything at the time, but I was furious. Not only was she disrespecting my fiancé, but she was implying that I should compare myself to her fiancé's standards. Things escalated with the wedding invitations. I received a wedding invite with my name only, no Jake. I confronted her privately, trying to stay calm, and told her that Jake and I are a package deal and it was hurtful to exclude him. She laughed and said, "Well, maybe he can come to the reception if there's a +1 spot left." I was livid. The breaking point was last weekend. She called me to discuss seating charts and said something I can't unhear. "Honestly, I don't know why you even need Jake there. He doesn't contribute anything meaningful to the family dynamic, and I don't want him making things awkward. People like Mark are just better." I asked her to repeat that, and she did, word for word. I hung up without saying anything and spent the next 2 hours trying not to cry. I told Jake what happened, and he was equally shocked and hurt. We spent a few days discussing it, and ultimately, I made a decision. I called Emily and told her I wouldn't be attending her wedding if Jake wasn't welcome as my fiancé. I explained that it was impossible for me to celebrate one of the most important days of her life while my partner was being treated as an unwelcome outsider. She flipped out. She accused me of making it about myself and ruining her special day, and said that she didn't realize it mattered so much to me. Our parents got involved and basically told me that I should just be the bigger person and attend without Jake, saying I was overreacting. I haven't spoken to Emily since that call. A few family members are saying I'm being dramatic and that it's just one day. Others are supporting me. I feel like I shouldn't have to go to an event where the person I love isn't allowed. I'm still hurt, embarrassed, and angry about everything she said. My friends say I'm justified, but my parents keep saying that I'm overreacting and that I should just suck it up for my sister. Jake says he'll support whatever I choose, but I feel like if I go without him, it will feel like I'm endorsing her behavior. So Reddit. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded my fiancé and treated him like he's beneath the family. AITA for ruining my brother's wedding by refusing to participate in a family tradition that I found completely inappropriate. So this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 27F, come from a rather unconventional family, at least in terms of some of our traditions. My brother, Mark, 30M, is getting married in a few months, and the more the planning went on, the more I started realizing that I might be facing a serious conflict with what my family expects from me. I want to start by giving some context about our family and this particular tradition. Our family had a long-standing ritual at weddings. For generations, it's been a thing that the bride and groom's siblings participate in a ceremony during the reception, which involves a dance performance that's, let's just say, highly sexualized. It's called the Passion Dance, and it's been a tradition for both male and female siblings. The idea is supposedly to bless the marriage with desire and energy, according to my grandmother, who invented most of these rituals. Everyone else in my extended family has gone along with it, and honestly, a lot of them seem proud to do it. When Mark got engaged and we started talking about the wedding, my mother casually brought it up, saying I would have to do my dance. At first, I laughed it off, thinking she was joking. Then she started giving examples of what was expected, revealing clothing, seductive movements, and being fun about it in front of literally dozens of relatives and friends. I told her I was not comfortable with it. She said that's fine, but the family would be disappointed if I didn't. I tried to negotiate. I offered to do something else, like giving a toast or helping with planning, or even performing a non-sexual dance, but my mother insisted that it had to be the traditional version. She said that refusing would shame Mark and ruin the wedding spirit. I got defensive because it feels extremely inappropriate and frankly humiliating. As the wedding day approached, I was still resisting. I told Mark about my feelings, explaining that I could not participate in something that made me feel unsafe and objectified. I assumed he would back me up, but instead, he got visibly angry. He said that everyone else in the family had done it, and it would be weird if I didn't. He accused me of trying to steal the spotlight or make him look bad. I reminded him that this is his wedding and that I should have the right to refuse something I find demeaning. The tension built up, and eventually, my mother cornered me in the kitchen a few days before the wedding. She begged, pleaded, and even cried, telling me that if I refused, I would be the black sheep forever, and that Mark might resent me for life. She said I was letting tradition die and killing family pride. Honestly, at that point, I felt cornered, anxious, and guilty, but I still could not bring myself to do it. Wedding day came. I went in with a plan to be supportive in every other way. I smiled, helped with decorations, made sure everyone had what they needed, and was as cheerful as possible. When the dance part came, my mother tried to pressure me on stage. I refused publicly, saying I was not comfortable participating. I could see my grandmother fuming, Mark's fiancé looking confused and uncomfortable, and a few other relatives whispering angrily. My brother shouted that I was embarrassing him in front of all the guests, and my mother kept trying to drag me toward the stage. I stood my ground. I made a brief speech about respecting personal boundaries and said I hoped everyone could enjoy the wedding without me following a ritual I found inappropriate. Some guests clapped. A few cheered, but the family was livid. My grandmother gave me a death glare. My mother stormed off crying, and Mark barely spoke to me for the rest of the reception. The mood of the event changed noticeably. People whispered. A few guests were awkwardly quiet, and my brother's fiancée tried to smooth things over with me later, saying she understood. The aftermath has been a nightmare. My family refuses to talk to me, aside from passive-aggressive texts. Mark accused me of being selfish and ruining his special day, saying that I could have just gone along with it for a few minutes and saved the wedding. My mother sent me a long email about family loyalty, tradition, and how I have betrayed generations. My grandmother has made comments on social media implying that I am shameful and dishonorable. Some of my extended family reached out to apologize privately, but the majority are clearly on my brother's side. Since then, I've been questioning myself constantly. Did I overreact? Should I have just done the dance to keep the peace, even if it made me uncomfortable? I genuinely wanted my brother to have a beautiful day, and I did everything else I could to help. But it feels like I'm being painted as the villain in a story where I was supposed to just sacrifice my own boundaries for everyone else's comfort. I don't want to cause a permanent rift, but I also cannot compromise my personal comfort and dignity for a tradition I find degrading. People keep saying I disrespected Mark, but I keep thinking, is it really disrespectful to stand up for my own limits? I don't know if I handled this the best way, or if I should have just gone along to avoid family drama. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to participate in my brother's wedding tradition and making a stand, even though it caused a huge family conflict. Character count, 6,458 if you want. I can also write a second, equally long story in a different popular AITA style, so it could feel like something that would trend right after this one. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to take care of my younger sister's kids after she asked me to move in temporarily. So this is going to be a long one because there's a lot of context. I, 27F, live alone in a small apartment in a big city. I work full-time as a graphic designer, and I enjoy my quiet, relatively low-stress life. I'm introverted, I like my routines, and I'm not someone who wants to live with family. My younger sister, Emma, 23F, recently had twins, and her partner, Mike, 25M, works long hours and often travels for work. A couple of weeks ago, Emma called me in a panic. She and Mike had a sudden work trip to another state, and she needed someone to watch the twins while they were gone for a week. She asked me if I could move into her place temporarily and take care of them. I told her straight up that I wasn't comfortable moving in with a baby, let alone twins, for a week. I've never had children, I don't know anything about caring for newborns, and honestly, the thought of taking care of two babies around the clock stressed me out. Emma started pleading, saying that it was just a week and that I could handle it. She even tried to guilt trip me, reminding me that I don't have kids and should understand how hard it is. I tried to offer a compromise. I could come over for a few hours a day to help with chores or feeding if she and Mike wanted, but I couldn't commit to full-time babysitting. She got upset and said that was useless, that she needed someone to be there 24/7 because she couldn't trust anyone else, and she accused me of being selfish. Her friends and some of her family members have weighed in, and it's caused a lot of tension. My parents think I should help because it's family, and I told them I already contribute in other ways, like helping with groceries and errands sometimes, and that I can't put my life on hold for a full week to take care of babies I don't know how to manage. Emma, however, keeps texting me almost daily, saying things like, "I thought you loved your sister," and "I can't believe you won't help me when I'm in a tough spot." Now here's where it gets more complicated. Some mutual friends of ours have said I'm being unreasonable, and they point out that it's only a week, and I have free time because I don't have kids. On the other hand, some of my friends think Emma is being manipulative, and it's not my responsibility to babysit twins. I feel like I've already tried to help in ways that are within my limits, but Emma and a few family members act like I'm morally obligated to drop everything. I'm exhausted from having to defend my decision constantly, and I feel guilty every time I see her texts and hear people talking about it behind my back. I haven't said anything to her since I offered the compromise, and now she's posting subtle passive-aggressive messages on social media about people who only think of themselves and family who isn't there when it matters. My parents are pushing me to do the right thing, and Emma says she'll just cancel her trip if I don't help. Honestly, I don't think it's fair to put that kind of pressure on me. I get that she's in a tough spot and that being a parent is hard, but I also know my limits. I'm trying to be reasonable and responsible in other ways, but it feels like nothing I do is enough. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to live with my sister temporarily and take care of her twins, even though she and some family members say I should. AITA for refusing to change my wedding plans because of my brother's fiancé. I, 27F, have been with my fiancé, Daniel, 28M, for 5 years. We've always dreamed about our wedding being outdoors in the spring, in a botanical garden with lots of flowers and natural scenery. Daniel and I are both very into nature and photography, and we agreed that this would make our wedding feel authentic to who we are. We booked a beautiful garden venue almost 2 years ago, and everything has been planned meticulously since then. The issue started when my younger brother, Alex, 25M, got engaged to his fiancée, Vanessa, 24F. Vanessa is very particular and outspoken about what she likes. When she found out the location and style of our wedding, she immediately started pushing for a more modern venue with a contemporary aesthetic and a color scheme that she loves. At first, I brushed it off as her being excited and opinionated. Daniel and I tried to politely tell her that we had been planning for years and that our wedding was a reflection of us, not anyone else. Things escalated when she started insisting that the flowers we chose were outdated, that the dress code was confusing, and that the seating chart wasn't optimized for Instagram. She also pressured Alex to back her up, which caused tension between us. Alex tends to avoid conflict, so he agreed with her suggestions, which made me feel like I was being attacked by both of them. A few weeks ago, Vanessa sent me a long email listing her concerns and suggestions for our wedding. She proposed we completely change the venue to a minimalist indoor space, swap the floral arrangements for something she deemed trendy, and even reconsider the catering because the menu was too simple. I responded politely, explaining that our wedding had been planned for years, we had paid deposits, and the choices were very important to us. I told her we appreciated her input, but it wasn't up for debate. After I sent that email, Alex called me furious. He said I was being unreasonable and selfish, and that I was making Vanessa upset. He told me she feels unwelcome at the wedding because of my stubbornness. I tried to explain that it's mine and Daniel's wedding, not theirs, but Alex kept insisting that I needed to compromise to keep family harmony. He also brought up that Vanessa has family coming from out of state, and apparently they're expecting a fancy wedding. I reminded him that the venue is beautiful, the catering is high-end, and the overall experience is still very elegant. The day after that call, Vanessa posted on social media a friendly reminder to all our mutual friends about what a unique challenge it is to have a garden wedding in spring, implying it's difficult and somehow problematic. Several friends reached out to me, worried that she might be trying to cause drama. I ignored it at first, hoping this would blow over. Then, 2 weeks ago, Vanessa started sending gifts for the wedding suggesting changes. For example, she sent a modern centerpiece that clashed completely with our theme and included a note saying, "Just a small idea if you feel like upgrading your decorations." I didn't respond to the gift. Another example, she tried to buy my dress from the designer I had already chosen, claiming it could be modernized. When I refused, she asked Alex to confront me again. At this point, I felt cornered and extremely frustrated. Last weekend, things reached a breaking point. We were visiting my parents' house to discuss final arrangements when Vanessa announced she was offended that our wedding isn't accommodating her vision. She said the garden venue was outdated and boring, the colors were tacky, and that she and Alex might reconsider attending if it doesn't suit her. I told her bluntly that we would not change anything and that threatening to skip the wedding over personal preferences was unreasonable. Alex exploded. He said I was ruining the family and that I was choosing to fight rather than compromise. My parents got involved, which only added pressure. My mom suggested I could meet her halfway and maybe add some of Vanessa's touches. I tried to explain that we were already balancing multiple family expectations, had paid a significant amount of money, and that this was literally the one event that should reflect Daniel and me, not my brother's fiancé. Daniel has been completely supportive of me, saying he doesn't want to give in to unreasonable demands, but he's also worried about the fallout with Alex and Vanessa. I feel like if we give in now, it will set a precedent that they can try to control every aspect of our wedding, which isn't fair. The latest drama is that Vanessa started texting mutual family members, telling them I was dictatorial and impossible to please, which has caused some tension at family gatherings. I tried to ignore it and stay calm, but it's stressful. I've told Alex and Vanessa multiple times that their approval is not required, and that if they choose not to attend, that's their decision. But apparently, that's not enough. So now I'm getting backlash from multiple sides. Friends say I'm being strong and standing my ground, but some family members think I should compromise to keep peace. I honestly feel like changing our wedding for Vanessa would be bending over backward for someone who is being controlling and disrespectful. I want my wedding to feel authentic, not a negotiation with my brother's fiancé. I know weddings can be sensitive, but AITA for refusing to change our wedding plans, even though my brother's fiancé is upset. Character count, 6,442 if you want. I can draft a Part 2 style continuation that adds even more drama, pushing it closer to 7,000 characters while keeping it in the popular Reddit AITA storytelling style. This could make it feel like a viral post. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.